more light on, especially to the side where the red pillow is?
Okay, it's orange, and I'll try my best.
Our orange pillow.
Can you guys hear me?
I can.
Okay.
And I'm very laid back, so.
Is that better?
Let me see. Okay, Facebook.
Twin, what's that code again?
That is.
Okay. Are we live on Facebook?
We are.
Can we share it on our page?
You should be able to share it from my page.
Okay.
All right, let me hit record. All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the first Candid Conversations VirtuCon. Well, of course, we are on Zoom and we're streaming live on Facebook. Thanks ahead of time for sharing this out. Share this out with all your friends. It's public on my timeline, so it should be easy to share. And with me, I am your host, Ariel Renaud, certified life and veteran development coach and founder of The Veteran Woman and moderator of this panel. And if you know me, you know I have a very laid back approach to things. So I want this to be very interactive. I want you to ask the panelists questions either through the chat or by calling in and typing, whatever, just let's all talk. And so without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So today I have with us the co-authors of the Her Story panel, the Her Story anthology. They're our panelists for today. And we also have CB Wallace. She has also experienced some of the things that we talked about in Her Story. So without further ado, can everybody give like 2 minutes of introducing themselves, starting with CB?
Start. Hello, I am CB Wallace. I think your camera's frozen.
Is it?
Me?
Yeah, we can't see her.
Okay. Is that better?
We're frozen up. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So I am CB Wallace. I am a writer. I'm an author. And I am a women's advocate, a warrior for total health and wellness for women, the physical, spiritual, emotional, and mental health and well-being.
Okay. Leslie, will you go next?
Yes, good evening. My name is Chrystia. I am a Navy veteran.
I can't hear you too well.
You can hear me? Uh-oh. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's just low.
Yeah, okay. My name is Chrystia. I'm a retired Navy veteran, and I'm also a certified relationship specialist with the American Psychotherapy Association. I call myself an instrument of restoration because I'm passionate about restoring relationships. And I'm also a Hampton Roads chair for the Hampton Roads Military and Civilian Domestic Violence, or I should say Family Violence Prevention Council.
Wow, wow. Welcome, welcome. Sierra, you're up next.
Okay. Hey everyone, I know you can't see me and I'm sorry about that. I promise I'll be better next time. But I am Sierra Richard. I am ex-Army. I was a chemical specialist. I'm a co-author in Her Story 2. I had the pleasure of meeting these lovely ladies in person. Not all of them. I can't wait to meet the rest of you. I don't have a lot of credentials yet. You know, so full-time mom, work and travel, author, even have a regular 9 to 5. So that's it.
Okay, so I'm messaging all the people that are in chat with us as well. So Mercy, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Mercy McKinley. I'm a veteran of the United States Army. I'm a former victim advocate in the military as well. I am a co-author in Her Story 2 project. I'm a co-author of Solid No More Camouflage Sisters, and a co-author in Linda Eastman, Finding Your Voice, the Strong and Assertive Woman. And here shortly, I'm in the process of releasing my own independent project called The Harvest, where it's really more so about helping women to learn to love themselves as God loves them. So I'm excited to be a part of this panel today.
Nice, nice. Welcome. Okay, let's see.
So could I add something? I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
I forgot to mention that I am a 34-year veteran of the U.S. Army. I retired with 33 years, 7 months, and 2 days.
Oh, wow.
She had to put that in there.
You broke it down.
Jocelyn, welcome, welcome. Can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
I can. Oh, there you are. Hey.
How's everybody?
All right.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm a little late. Been a bad day. I'm tired and not feeling so well. However, I'm Jocelyn Kelly, and I'm one of the co-authors for the Her Story panel. And I am a pastor's wife. So I preach and teach and try to help encourage other women at my church who have undergone abuse, and that's the acronym for abandonment, battery, unfaithfulness, sexual abuse, and esteem issues. And so, and with this Her Story project, I'm also getting ready to launch the Counterfeit Love project, which is going to help to enable other women to get out of domestic violence. So that's where we are right now.
Is somebody knocking somewhere? Is somebody trying to get in?
I'm sorry, I just had an interruption. Please, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I know life is going on, so it's fine. As long as everybody's okay.
Everybody's fine. Thank you.
All right.
Forgot my memo.
So I was hoping that I could see Stacey. I don't see Stacey on. I know she was having a little bit of technical issues. Stacey, can you hear me by chance? Okay. Not sure. So Leslie, you were on the panel with me in February, and I know one of the questions was talking about taking the first step. It was a part of the chapter that you talked about taking that first step. Can you go more into detail about that? Because that was really, really touching.
Yes, actually, when I retired from the Navy, I really wasn't sure what the next step was and what I was supposed to do. So I got my real estate license, I was getting my MBA, and at the same time, I could have sworn someone stamped on my forehead, talk to me about your relationship, because strangers, we just find ourselves in that conversation. And at the same time, I was, going through, those hard times that you go through in marriage myself. And it was my second marriage. My first marriage was to my abuser. And I was just kind of a little confused going through that moment. And I had already invited the Lord into my marriage. I said, God, I want you to be in my marriage, this marriage. But I also said, what is it that you would have me do? And the moment I asked him, instead of trying to figure it out for myself, that was when he went ahead and started laying out a plan for me. And I just learned that God waits for us to move. We sit here and we're like, God, would you please, would you please, would you please? But he waits for us to move first and just take that step, and then he'll reveal the next step. We want to see the entire path before us before we go, instead of just trusting. Just stay right here, just move here. And he'll wait as long as we take. And ever since then, he's shown that to me, even since I met you guys during the project on the panel. It happened again. I was struggling at my 9-to-5 job. It became a very toxic work environment with a 70% turnover rate. And I was waiting to find a new job before I left. And I wasn't finding another job. And I finally said, that's it. I have to have a deadline. What else can I do? I moved some money around, paid off my car, paid off my rental. And I just jumped and I quit my job. And I've been gone from my job 2 months. In a 2 month time frame, I have made more money than I would have 2 months salary in that 9-to-5.
Wow.
That being said, we just have to trust him.
Awesome.
And I know my calling is in relationship restoration. And again, don't wait to have all the credentials and be equipped, because he's already given that to us. And I just thought, who'd have thought that somebody who never had any example of marriage, and then my first marriage was abusive, who'd have thought that he would have chosen me to help others in relationship restoration? And to add to that, I never wanted to talk about my experience in domestic violence. That wasn't in my plan at all. And in my job, one of my responsibilities when I got that job after I invited him in my plan, the very first thing they put me in charge of was building healthy relationships program. The very second thing he put me in charge of was the family advocacy program for domestic violence prevention for the military. And then after that, next thing you know, I meet Stacey, and then there's this book, and then for the first time I'm out there speaking. Now here I am, co-chair of our local council. So he's got a plan. We just have to trust him.
Right, right. Thank you for sharing. And I asked Leslie first because I remember that off the top of my head from sharing that in February, and I remember snotting and boohooing. So no offense to anyone else. CB, I know you were unfortunately not a part of this book, but I know you do have a story. So will you share a little bit about your story as far as domestic violence, how you overcame that, and what you're doing now to help other women who experience similar things?
Yes. I too am sorry that I wasn't a part of this masterpiece, but I applaud all you ladies for stepping up and sharing your story to help somebody, to aid somebody else going through who are afraid to speak up and ask for help otherwise. So my story, I'm like the other young lady. I never ever thought in a million years that I would ever be sharing my story. It never was my intent. I was married twice. The first marriage, and when I want to preface this by saying that, a lot of times we go through different degrees of domestic violence. And I know a lot of women go through some ugly physical scars. But they're also mental. There are mental scars, mental abuse that's derived from domestic violence. And that's where my story lies. My first husband, he was physically abusive, but not grueling, but still, it was abuse. It was physical abuse. Most of my abuse came with my second husband. I was a preacher's wife as well when I was the first lady from my husband, who was a preacher. And the abuse, the verbal abuse, the mental abuse, the emotional abuse that I lived through for 13 years, I remember saying to him, I wish you would hit me. So at least I'd have a scar to show for it. So I'd have something to show, But there were no physical scars per se, but the mental toll, the emotional toll, and the, that it took on my psyche to the point of breakdown and PTSD stigmas and wanting to kill myself and attempted suicide and surviving attempted suicide. Those things are a lot of things we don't talk about, especially in the church. And at the time being in the church, it was like, I even felt guilty believe it or not. I felt guilty because I was the first lady. And, and the first lady, I got my big hat on and I got my little heels on and, this can't be going on in my marriage. So I aided and abided. I enabled because I helped I assisted in the perpetration of that fraud for 13 years. And until I got to the point where it was like, I'm going to die. And it just, it was like the international sign of cut it. It's time to cut it off. I can't do it anymore. And I don't know where. Well, I say I don't know where. I was going to say I don't know where the courage came from, but I know where the courage came from. It came from God. And I'm not saying that God is in divorce or that he perpetuates divorce and breakup marriages and things like that. That's not what I'm saying. But I believe that the God that I serve, he saw where I was. He knew where I was. He knew what it was doing to me. And I think he made a way of escape for me. And, and after many, many times, many attempts of saying, do I stay? Do I go? Do I stay? Do I go? There just came that clear and that precise and that instant was like, yeah, I go. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I've never spoken about it. I had never spoken about it until October of last year. And like I said, I never had any. I love to write and, and I write about different things about this thing called life and navigating life and sharing some of my wisdom, my 54 years and, 33 years in the military. I've been through stuff, I've seen some stuff. And so I enjoy sharing, but I never wanted to share that aspect of my life because I have a son, and because I didn't want that stuff to get out there, but it just kind of happened. I just kind of like rolled into it. I met a young lady a couple years ago via Facebook, in one of the Facebook communities, and she was a domestic violence survivor herself, harsh domestic violence survivor, and she also has an organization calling Helping Hearts to Heal. So we had connected and she was asking about, she needed some help doing some things for her conference. And, I thought I was assisting her administratively. But then she asked about having speakers for the conference. And I don't know why I raised my hand and I said, well, I can be a speaker. So she called me on it. And sure enough, I was one of her speakers. I showed up at the event last October thinking I had 5 minutes to speak. I was on for 5 minutes. So I was just going to just brush over it, not get into a lot of detail. So we get there, long story short, we get there. Some of the speakers were not able to attend. So it's like, you got 20 minutes. Are you kidding me? 30 minutes if you want. What? I don't have 30 minutes prepared. I had one little card, 3 little points, and it was going to take me all of 4 minutes to get it out. And so I get up there, I'm like, okay, so I had my little card, I threw my card out. I said, okay, God, what am I going to do? What am I going to talk about? I said, I'm just going to get up there. I said, I don't want to get up there and ramble. I don't want to get up there and bore anybody. I just want to get up there, use me as an instrument to help somebody, even if just one person in the room. Let what I say be a help to help one person. And it was amazing. I don't know.
It definitely takes the courage to share. And I want to talk about that next. I see Stacey. Stacey, can you hear us now?
I could always hear you.
Well, I apologize. Oh, I can see you now.
I could always hear you. You couldn't hear me because I had called in.
Got it.
Because I called in, you had automatically muted. So yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm here.
Well, welcome, Stacey. She is the visionary behind her story. Stacey, I want to thank you for bringing us all together and making us a part of this anthology. And you're doing Her Story 3, correct? Did she mute herself? Did we lose her again? Okay, you're doing Her Story 3?
No, I'm here. I said yes.
So Stacey, since you're here with us, can you give us a little bit about yourself real quick?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
It is probably lagging a little bit. My internet's lagging just a little bit. But oh, okay, about me. I guess I'm Stacey. Getting in this internet has me all frayed, so you guys have to just bear with me. So
it's
anyway,
okay.
Yes, yes, I am the mastermind behind it, and I want to say that my reason for starting her story was because just what she just said. You know, she was a pastor's wife. She was ashamed. She had an image to uphold, and a lot of women don't have a platform to speak or know how. So as you know, many of you, I know Mercy had already written in a couple books, and you know, I think she's about the only one, but most of the women in the book have never spoken on a platform about their DV. None of them had really actually shared it with anyone, or really talked about it, or really dealt with those ashamed feelings. And one of the programs that I teach is Writing to Heal. So I decided to get women together and actually help provide a platform for them to be able to share their story. And that's how we bring about awareness when we're able to share our story, because others get confidence through us. And they're like, if they can share their story, then I can share mine, or I can find healing, or I can walk through this process because I'm not by myself. I'm not alone. There are other women that are actually going through this, because that was one of the all over the place. But when you're stuck in that, you're like, it's just me. It's just me. No one understands. No one will understand while I'm still here. No one will understand what I'm going on. What, you know, why I'm going through this. No one will understand. So, like I said, my vision behind it was to get women together so that we could push the awareness together, right, to help other women have confidence in sharing their story and overcoming their story and not continuing to live in it. So that was my vision behind her story too.
Thank you. And definitely share with us.
Are you guys still there?
We
Can you guys
are.
hear me?
We can. Of course, we're doing something great. So internet wants to act up, and you know that whole Newton's law thing is going on, but we're going to keep pushing through. So, Stacey, if you can share in the chat how people can get involved or contact you in order to be involved with Her Story 3, could you do that, please? I think we're a little delayed.
Yes.
That's okay. Okay, there we go. So Mercy, welcome Mercy. Can you tell us a little bit about your story behind domestic violence? I did notice in the book that you went through it while you were in the military.
Yes, I did. It was definitely a trying time because I felt ashamed being the rank that I was, and trying to reach out to senior leadership and higher up.
Can I ask you what rank you were?
Oh, I was a staff sergeant at the time.
Okay.
You know, but I always prided myself on going above and beyond to take care of my soldiers. So to be known for that reputation, but didn't have the strength or the support to protect myself, I was very ashamed of it. So at the time, what I had to do was I had to battle for my own protective order. I had to attend court. I had to recover from surgery from the damage sustained after being beaten. And I really had to do all of this while still serving in the military, you know. But at that time, it was hard for me to process because my abuser was also in the military, you know. So it was I definitely felt alone, primarily because you always would hear people say, oh, that'll never be me. You know, I'll never be a domestic violence, in a domestic violence situation, or that'll never occur to me. But yet there I was, you know, and the image, not necessarily the image, but overall how I was as a person and how I would go above and beyond to take care of others. You know, to be in that situation, but to also be known for that didn't quite fit together. if that makes any sense.
It does. It does.
So yes. And I really just had to go through rehabilitation. I wound up being medically retired behind the additional damage that I sustained after being beaten. And it's definitely been a long road. But at the time, I really had to convince myself that I had to be honest with myself. I had to be real. I've always had a strong belief system and a strong faith in God, because God has gotten me through so many trials and tribulations, So I really had to acknowledge the fact that I seen the signs. There were red flags all around me, but I'm not saying that I chose to ignore them. But when you are in that situation and you generally think that this person, you probably think that, oh my goodness, it's just a moment in time, or this is going to be an isolated event, or what it is that I done wrong, and so forth and so on. So I had to really allow myself to process through those particular feelings, and it was definitely a trying time, but it was more rewarding for me to be able to stand up for myself, because I know a lot of women don't get that opportunity. A lot of, not primarily just women, but everybody, some people that go through domestic violence situations, it costs them their life, but yet here I am, so I have to figure out a way to be grateful the fact that I'm still here, and I have to make my life have a purpose and have a meaning. So when people come and ask me, or I, have the opportunity to share my story, I know that it's not primarily for me. I'm a strong believer in God, and I understand that sometimes when we go through things, it's not primarily just about us. It's about other people to witness how we made out of that storm. So pretty much that was my motivating factor for being in her story too. A lot of my family, a lot of my friends didn't know about the situation that I endured, because quite frankly, when I was going through my surgery or going through rehab, I was too ashamed to reach out to them. So, but I can definitely tell you who was there all throughout the time, and that was God Himself.
Right.
So, I'm very appreciative of that. So, yeah, it's definitely been a long journey.
Thank you for sharing. Wow. There's like so many questions I want to ask everyone based off of what you're sharing, but I don't, we only have a certain amount of time, so let's keep going. So I'll get there. So Jocelyn, I haven't forgotten about you, but before I get to Jocelyn, I'm gonna hop over to Sierra, and I muted everyone just to make sure we don't get any feedback. So if you have something to say, just let me know, kind of raise your hand or type it in the chat and I can unmute you. But Sierra, I am unmuting you now. Can you share your story about domestic violence and how you overcame it, or how you pushed through to stop the situation? And were you in the military when you went through it?
No, I was actually out of the military by the time that I actually had my domestic dispute encounters. I joined the military when I was 17. I wanted to retire from the military. However, when I joined in the Guard because I was so young, so I can do split up. And once I realized my contract was up, I wanted to go active, but by that time I was already a single mother, and I'm stubborn, so I wasn't going to sign over guardianship anyone, so that just didn't work for me. But the craziest thing about my relationship, where I actually was involved in I've never really been in a domestic relationship. I've always been a tomboy, so I'm used to wrestling and play fighting, but to actually have to defend myself in reality was just crazy to me. A lot of my friends couldn't believe the woman that I was. And the crazy thing is, I don't know who she was, because everyone who knew me knew that, no, I don't think I'm Billy Bad, blank, blank, but I will defend myself, and what you're not going to do to me is X, Y, and Z. With me being a single mom, I will admit I got caught up in the fantasies that was told to me on how we're going to be a family and how I changed him and the girls changed him and he just wanted to be so great. And like I said, when we did our collaboration conference, I lost best friends behind this. These are females that I grew up with. And one of them, and it still makes me teary-eyed because, you know, I still love them. And it's just like, I crossed the line and I paid for it, you know. When I was younger, I was witness to domestic violence, and I always said that wouldn't be me. Because what you won't do is ever put your hands on me, I'm going to fight you back. And I did that in the beginning. And what I realized is the more angry I got and the more I wanted to defend myself and the more I fought back, the more energized it seemed like he got, because he liked that negative side of me, that I'm not tolerating any nonsense and, you know, just being really aggressive. But you've met me in person and to spend time with me. I'm not an aggressive person. I'm like goofy, I'm playful. I'd rather just be calm and have fun. I don't like being angry. But that was something that he liked. And the first time, it wasn't even a hit the first time. The first time it was, you know, grabbing by hair, grabbing by the neck. And it's just like, okay, well, he told me and he told family that he wouldn't do that to me. So, you know, he's just mad right now, but it's not going to escalate past this. And this isn't something that I can't just brush off. So that hair pulling and that grabbing by the throat turns into, now you're going to smack me, or you're going to push me, or you're going to hit me. And now I have to defend myself, so now I'm fighting you back. And you should never have to be in that position. And it happens, and the first time, like, it's crazy that we all have stated we felt ashamed. We felt ashamed of being in this predicament, when in all actuality, we have nothing to be ashamed about. If anything, I should have been like, I knew, because I knew who he was, because everyone told me who he was. But no, because I'm the one who's going to show him real love. And I'm going to show him that he doesn't have to be angry, and we're going to be great. And he's not going to do it to me. That he's not going to do it to me. It's such a terrible, terrible.
And that's, and a lot of the stuff that you said, like, oh, it won't happen to me. Oh, if that ever happened, you know, I'd leave immediately, or, you know, if somebody ever even look at me wrong, da 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 da. But it's different when you're in a loving relationship for whatever reason. And it's so easy to say what you would do and what you wouldn't do until you get into that situation. Exactly. And I know it's easy to look at a woman who's being abused and say, well, hey, why don't you just leave? Or why are you staying? But it's not, it's just not that easy. And it's hard to explain to people who've never been in that situation. But I want to move on. Thank you, Sierra, for sharing. I'm going to go ahead and mute you and unmute Jocelyn. Like I said, if anybody wants to say anything, raise your hand. And if you don't think I see you, just type it in the chat, because I do want this very interactive. So Jocelyn, I know you're not a veteran, correct?
No, I'm not. I never served.
That's okay. But I thank you so much for still saying yes to this and for joining us, because I believe that everybody has a story to share, whether you're a veteran or not, even though I do focus mostly on women veterans. Everybody's story is still important. And especially when it comes to domestic violence, sharing that and getting that out there and letting people know that they're not alone. And so can you share your story, a little bit about what you went through and how you had the courage to share and or had the courage to just get out?
I think in retrospect, I didn't have a choice. I had to find the courage because it had gotten so dangerous. I basically got shipped away. I was a teenager, so I went from 15 to 18 having to deal with this. And it's interesting because my family, who was biting my nails, I wasn't sure what the reaction was going to be. My loving family is all just, their response has been, I didn't know. And why didn't you say something? Because it's embarrassing. I didn't deliberately go and find somebody who was abusive and who was a gangbanger and who was strung out on drugs and alcohol. I didn't deliberately go find this person. This person found me, but disguised it so well, I didn't see it. And what I told one of my aunts was that the spell that was on me because of his charm and his lies and his promise to do different, it was so strong that you could have had the National Guard in front of my house. I would have found a way back to him. I would have found a way because he always had an excuse and an answer. And even with those excuses and answers, it just got worse and worse. And the gang affiliation and the drug abuse, it just took it to a whole nother level. And I think somewhere in my mind, because even though I was raised in a household where I had a parent who was a drug abuser, it wasn't a reality because I guess I didn't believe people actually lived this way because I was so young and naive. But it spiraled out of control. And you can't hide the bruises and the busted lips, and you can't hide the scratches and on all of that. It got to be too much. And so that final blow is when they had to ship me off because the judge told me that the legal system can't even protect me anymore. He didn't care. He was coming after me. And then finally I got shipped away. But the mentality of it and the embarrassing detail, I'm gonna stop this, but the embarrassing detail is that when he and I got a chance to come to terms about 3-4 years ago, I saw the man that I had initially fallen for in the beginning, and I almost got suckered back in just that quick because of that formative years where he got me. And I tell you, ladies, my sex life suffered because of the sexual humiliation, my trust, my marriage. It has not been pretty, but through process and prayer and telling this story and facing those demons that tried to keep me embarrassed and tried to keep me suppressed, it has really been a liberating journey. So I'm most grateful to God, first and foremost, to getting me out of that mess.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So I'm going to unmute everyone real quick. And she brought up a good point that I wanted to ask everyone. Has anybody gotten out of the situation and then saw the person who you fell in love with? You see, I'm doing air quotes, and then went back into the situation.
Yes.
No, I wouldn't say for myself. What does happen is that he tried to go through one of my mutual friends to get back in contact with me on social media. But I don't engage, I don't respond, I don't do anything along those lines because I'm a firm believer that when God gets you out of that situation, it's for a reason, and deletion is for your protection, and you need to stay out, but I do know that sometimes we can be in a state of being weak in a sense, like falling for the charm, falling for the manipulation, falling for, oh, I'm sorry, I'll never do this again, I'll never hurt you again, so forth and so on. But for me, I know that I just engage it. Anytime there's a reach out on social media or anything along those lines, I just totally ignore it, so for me, definitely not.
For me,
Go ahead.
We're still in contact because we share a child.
Oh, wow.
And she's 2. So she doesn't know any better. That's her daddy. She loves him. So we are in contact. But because the straw that broke the camel's back was the fact that I was pregnant and you put your hands on me, which put her at risk. Me, okay, but her, there's nothing he could say or do that would make me come back.
Mm. Leslie, I know you had something to say, right?
Yeah, I never got sucked back in again, but just like Sierra said, we have 2 children together. So we had to maintain contact. But I remember the day that I don't know if I was picking up my children or dropping them off, but he was trying to explain another situation to me. Really was none of my business, but I was in my car and he was out there just going on. And I just remembered listening to him and thinking, wow, if I did not know who he was, I would every
Exactly.
out of his mouth, which is the reason why a lot of people, like his family, didn't want to believe me. Oh, it couldn't have been that bad. And I just remember hearing that. I can to this day remember exactly where we were and where he was standing. And I was like, man, if I did not know him, I would have believed his side of the story.
Right.
But I honestly think that he believed his side of the story.
They do.
Yeah.
And so charismatic. Somebody mentioned something earlier that reminded me to talk about, I think all of us have experienced the physical side of abuse. And that's something that's, I guess, easy to show. You can see the evidence of that. What's even harder, and somebody mentioned it, hey, I'd rather you just hit me so I see the scars. Was it CB? Is like the narcissistic abuse, the emotional abuse, the financial abuse as well. And abusers can be very, very charming. And I know Mercy talked about narcissistic abuse in her chapter as well. And I just wanted to read a little bit from my chapter about narcissistic abuse. So I said, essentially, a narcissistic abuser gains control by breaking down all lines of communication. They meticulously alienate the victim from all family and friends until he or she is completely fixated on them entirely and is willing to devote all time and attention to them only. Secondly, they take pleasure in demeaning the victim to a point of convincing him or her that they are the problem instead of the other way around. So they make you feel like you're crazy or like you're overreacting or whatnot. In my relationship, for example, I was dubbed as the one who was crazy and irrational, while he constantly exploded over the smallest things, which is also called gaslighting. To keep the peace, I would conform to his wishes and apologize for my actions. It got to the point that I dreaded having a conversation with him because I knew my concerns and feelings were not being heard or acknowledged. In turn, I stopped voicing my opinions, thoughts, or emotions, and I buried myself. I buried everything about me, and I lost Ariel. So it's not always the physical that we see, but it's the emotional, and it's hard. It's like PTSD. It's one of those invisible wounds, and people take for granted, and they'll say to you, oh, nothing's wrong with you, when you're fighting this battle time and time again on the inside. So everybody's quiet.
No, I'm just listening to you because I can definitely relate being involved with a narcissistic abuser. You know, as I hear you speak, I say to myself, I'm hearing and I'm seeing my same experience, you know. And it was, and I think the hardest thing for me at that moment was the laughter that I received. I received the laughter from him as I was being beaten. And I also received the laughter from the group of friends who helped him to try to conceal his crime. So it was the laughter that stayed within my head long after everything had already transpired. I can hear that. I can hear that laughter every day when I would wake up, every day when I would go to sleep at night. That laughter is what played over and over in my mind. He was definitely narcissistic because I met him when we were like really young. I think I was 22, maybe he was probably 20, but I had no idea he was a narcissist at that particular time. So I went on with my life, but every 2 years he would do the same thing, try to reappear in my life and make everybody think that what's going on is one way, but behind closed doors would always talk about threatening suicide and I couldn't do anything right, and everything that was going wrong in his life was my fault, and all kind of things. And they're very skillful in what they do, you know. But
Yes.
I think for me, it was more so the laughter, and but yet that laughter is what allowed me to go forward, you know, because sometimes you have to realize that for me, I know for myself, I was very grateful for that to be revealed to me in that time frame. Because if you narcissists, they like to re-enter into your life. They like to re-enter into your life like nothing ever even happened. They want to pick up where they left off, you know. But I know for me, and one of the things he would say when he did it, he said, "My, aren't you just the smartest one out of the bunch?" Can you imagine that? You know? But it only took me maybe about 6 months to come to terms with the full extent of who he was, you know.
And you know, and I didn't realize, speaking of narcissistic abuse, I didn't realize what I was going through, because what I just read is the most recent occurrence.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's recent, and I'm still working through it. And we're not living together, but it's that tug, it's that back, honestly, it's that back and forth, like, should I get back with them? Should I not? You know, that back and forth, because in your head, it's like, well, at least he didn't hit me, or at least he didn't do this. And so just working through that. But I will say, with writing this book, it was very, very hard for me. And I actually spoke the words out and then had somebody transcribe it. And then I figured I had to read what I wrote when the editor sent it back. But it's as if I relived it and then looked at myself like, why did I take myself through all that? Am I stupid? And then I told myself, don't think about stupid, just release it and be a testimony to somebody else to make it through. But sometimes you're going through and you do not know. So I encourage people to pick up a copy of this book and read it, because we all share our stories in here, and it's very open, it's very candid, and you may realize some of the things that you're going through and realize that, you know, those red flags that you may not recognize as red flags, you may be like, oh, open your eyes to what is going on. Because just if he doesn't hit you, he or she, I'm not going to be one-sided, just because you're not getting hit doesn't mean you're not being abused. And if you need to reach out to any of us, feel free to reach out, because I've met a majority of the panel, and I know, and we're all veterans except for Jocelyn, but she's an honorary veteran right now. So, I mean, feel free to reach out. And I know Jocelyn has a tremendous and big heart as well. So I thank you all for sharing. And we have 10 minutes until the top of the hour. I know many of you are on Eastern time, and I see people getting tired. I know you're tired. I know Sierra was fussing about going. And
I drove 12 hours and then worked an 8-hour shift.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So without further ado, does anyone have any last bits of knowledge or bit of advice or anything that they would like to share? And I will go around so we don't kind of over speak and over talk each other. So Leslie, do you have any last nuggets of wisdom to share with us?
I just really wish that, you know, word can reach the actual abusers. And I don't mean the ones that were our abusers necessarily, but because I've had the opportunity to train the military and be in that environment, you know, I'm so thankful for the gift of mercy. But if people would, those that have abusive behavior, would recognize that we speak so much into the victims, which is very important because it's about safety, but we train so much on identifying what is going on at its earliest stages so something can be done now instead of waiting for the cycle to get worse. But I encourage those that actually are the ones controlling this situation to do the same, because I do wholeheartedly believe that people do not get in relationships for the purpose of wanting to abuse someone. If we wait and it gets to that worst case scenario, people don't say, oh, I'm going to get married so I can be abusive, and then 10 years later, I'm going to try to kill them. Behavior is learned, and that's why I'm such an advocate of doing marriage the right way, because what we do, our children will do. They did not get this behavior out of the blue sky from nowhere. Behavior is learned. It is not an excuse at all whatsoever, by no means, but there is a reason. And if people could identify their own behavior instead of trying to cover it up and lie to other people and lie to themselves, the first step to change is admitting, I'm not really dealing with my anger right. I'm not really dealing with conflict resolution and communication right. Where can I go to change me so that I can have a healthy relationship? I just wish so much that people would identify for themselves, and then we wouldn't wait till we got to that situation where we're running for safety.
Thank you.
Is the other side, because I've actually seen it happen. I have an example of a man who was brought up in a violent situation around drugs. He was brought up he learned that you don't trust women. You don't respect women. He was brought up in an environment where if you got straight A's, you were made fun of and you were beaten. And this individual joined the military, he got married, and he repeated the same thing. He did not trust his wife when he went out on deployment. He always thought something was going on. And so how did he deal with that? He was abusive. But long story short, after she left, he did change his behavior. When he learned, even if she doesn't return, I have to change for me. She did forgive. She did come back. And they've been together over 18 years, abuse-free.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you. How can people get in touch with you, Leslie?
You can get in touch with me via Facebook, Leslie Chrystia. I also have a Facebook page, Making Marriage Matter. I also have a website, makingmarriagematter.com, Making Marriage Matter on Instagram, and Making Marriage Matter on Twitter.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you. Jocelyn, do you have, take only a minute, do you have any last bits of nuggets, bits of wisdom for us? Oh, did we lose Jocelyn? Okay, guess she had to run. CB.
Yes. So I just in closing, I just like to say that, you know, somebody had mentioned it before, and I talked about it earlier on Facebook Live, is that the things that we go through, when we get to the point where we realize that it's not about us, they weren't for us, but it was things orchestrated in our lives for us to go through, to get through them, so that we could be a help to somebody else and help pull somebody else out and help them to learn how to cope and to go through certain things. You know, the book that I co-authored, The Apple of His Eye, it talked about reflections of survival struggles and successes of single mothers. There was a group of us, 13 of us, I believe it was. And the underlying message, and this is my point, the underlying message after all of all of the stories were different, but the thing that bonded it together, and this is what I want people to remember, everybody to remember, is that we go through the abuse, but the power of forgiveness, man. We got to learn to forgive them completely and totally, cleanse our hearts of any shred of unforgiveness, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to help somebody else through it, is if we have nothing hidden, no hatred, no disdain, nothing, continuing in our heart cavities. And I was, both of my husbands, my ex-husbands, have since died. They're both dead. So, and I'm just thankful, I'm just thankful that I got the opportunity, that God out me, that God showed me his love, that I was able to forgive the both of them before they departed this earth.
And because when you don't forgive, they continue to have control on you. And
you will never be helped, and you'll never be able to help anybody else.
And another thing about forgiveness, you have to forgive yourself.
That's right. That's right.
You have to forgive yourself.
Absolutely.
So CB, how can we get in touch with you?
Well, I am, my website is under construction, but I am on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all under CB Wallace, CB Wallace. And my Instagram and my Twitter handle are actually Fit in 50. That's FIT, the letter N, 50, FIFTY, and the number 2. But you can find me if you just put in CB Wallace, you will find me.
Thank you so much, CB. Mercy, what last bits of wisdom do you have for us?
Yes, ma'am. My bits of wisdom is specifically for someone out there who's still in a situation. We were not meant to live in fear, and fear only serves the purpose that you give it, and to really sit back and recognize that your life is precious, your life is valuable. We're not sent here and put on this earth to undergo a life of abuse, and to just really find your voice and to really start processing the experiences that you went through and be able to verbalize it. Because I know for myself, I didn't know how to verbalize it, because I lived in shame. But you have nothing to be shameful of, and I will just say this, and I'm just going to admit it publicly. I think that I ended up in my situation because I never knew who Mercy was. I always gave myself and went above and beyond, but I never really understood how to truly love myself, and for anybody out there that's in a domestic violence situation, know that you're worthy enough and valuable enough to get out of that situation, because you cannot change the situation by yourself. An abuser is an abuser until they recognize that they are an abuser and want to seek help to be able to do so, but you can't change it by yourself. And if you're contemplating on getting out of that situation, you have to sit down and you really have to plan things out, because right now, I just want to help people to understand that there are many people that are losing their lives every day behind domestic violence. But if you're still here, you're still living, you're still breathing, you have an opportunity to repair your life, rebuild your life, and be free of abuse, So that's pretty much my last little nugget. Yes, ma'am.
Ariel, you're muted.
Sorry, thanks. So how can we, I'm sitting there like, thank you, and I'm talking, but how can we get in touch with you?
Oh, goodness. My website is still under construction as well, but I am on Facebook, Twitter, under Inspiration to Empower, under ITE, because I really want to empower people to live their life moving forward and just go back and reclaim their life one step at a time. So they can find me under Inspiration to Empower.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And last but not least, Sierra, what little bits of knowledge do you want to close us out with?
For me, the one thing that just came to my mind is that there's no age limit on abuse. It doesn't matter if you're a young female, if you're an older female, and I don't discriminate if you're a young man or an older man, because men deal with domestic violence, they deal with the mental and emotional also. It's just not spoken of because as we know, we feel ashamed. So think of how a man feels about it when they're supposed to be dominant and the leaders. There is no shame in dealing with domestic disputes, whether it's violence, whether it's mental, whether it's emotional. There's no shame in it. You're not alone. Someone else has gone through it too. One thing that's really been on my heart, especially speaking with you lovely ladies, I always love coming around women who are strong. And not all of us knew we were strong and definitely didn't feel strong in our situation, but we are because we're survivors. One thing that's really on my heart is suffering in silence. And I don't know why God keeps speaking that to me, but I'm going to do something with that. You don't have to suffer in silence. You can reach out, whether it's us, whether it's a friend. If you feel like no one understands you, it's okay. One thing that Stacey always preaches on and that I strongly believe in is power in the pen. Even if you just write it out and if you have a notebook and you're still in that situation and you hide it, you have to get it out somehow. And even if your notebook is just of you just writing to God, Lord, this is what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. Yes, he already knows, but sometimes you have to exhale. You got to get it out. So my thing is that you're not alone. There is no age requirement in order to be an abuser or to be the person who's abused.
Thank you. And how do we get in touch with you, Sierra?
The best way to reach me is through Facebook because I'm simple. I can't do all this Twitter and Snapchat, and I'm probably the youngest one here. I can't do it. My super fan isn't large enough for all of that. But we reached at Sierra Richard on Facebook. I'm open to inboxes. I don't know if people can write directly on my wall. If they inbox me, I will definitely reach back out to them.
Thank you. Again, everyone listening, I want to thank you. Everyone watching on Facebook Live, I want to thank you. And to the panelists, thank you so much for participating in this. I'm trying to unmute you all. Thank you so much for participating in this. And I know it was real and raw and candid, and this was my first time doing it in this fashion. So thank you for your patience. And I'm glad technology worked. Hopefully it worked well over on Facebook Live. I wasn't able to check that out. So thank you all. This recording will be available. I will send you the link. And why are you shaking your head, Leslie?
Just for you. I didn't see you. Just for you.
Leslie doesn't want to be seen.
I know, but she's so beautiful. I don't know why not. But thank you, everyone. I love each and every one of you. Remember, you are not alone. And have a good night. And I'm signing off. This is Ariel Renault, Certified Life and Veteran Development Coach, founder of The Veteran Woman. And you can find me at www.theveteranwoman.com. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.